Another rose painting for you, but I'll approach it differently this time. This lovely rose reference is from unsplash.com, and you can access this through the link in the description box below. Please use the same link when sharing your artwork with us for a quick feedback. I have my sketch here, and as always, I'll do the background with wet on wet technique. I loaded my brush with Queen Rose. This will be my base color for the flower. To add contrast, I'll introduce some greens for the leaves. I mixed Hooker's Green with Queen Rose, or green plus pink, to make this muted green shade. At this point, I'm not so concerned whether my pigments travel farther as expected, since this is just the first layer. Don't worry too much about the form and shape of the petals or whether your pencil marks are fading. We can always retouch that once dry. While this is still damp, I'll lift some highlight using the same brush. It wasn't shown in the camera, but I squeezed the excess water from the brush after rinsing it and before lifting up some pigments. Every time I lift some colors, I'm also tapping my brush on a paper towel to get rid of the extra or the excess water. If I don't do that, I'll have blooms or cauliflower effect since the paper is starting to dry now. Use the reference image as your guide where to lift those highlights. Once satisfied, I'll leave this to dry and work on defining the petals. If needed, you can also retouch your sketch as I did. I'm using a colored mechanical pencil for that. I'll work on the petals one by one. Start by wetting the petal shape, observing the reference, and painting it with the same color, Queen Rose. I'm trying to replicate the shade that I see here. If there's too much water, let the paper towel absorb it. After this, I'll look for another petal that is not touching the previous one that I worked on, because I don't want to disturb that petal that is starting to dry. That is why retouching the outline or the sketch is important to easily decide on the shape of the petal. You can also go with your intuition and randomly paint petal shapes, but this is the first time I'm trying this approach, so I'll need my guidelines. And I really love how it turned out. I usually paint roses loosely and quickly. And this made me realize something. My paintings that are done patiently and mindfully The ones where I really enjoy the process, the brushwork, and everything from the preparation stage to the final details, they generally look better. Do you have the same experience? With that, I have to apologize again for the dark footage and unstable focus, as this was recorded during a stormy night. I wasn't really planning to edit this into a paint-along session, but with the result, I thought this would be a good painting subject. Anyways, continue doing this. Choosing a petal to work on, carefully painting the shape with clean water first, and dropping your colors until the rose finally takes shape. We will add shadows later, but when deciding which petal to paint next, just make sure not to disturb the ones that are already drying, or you'll have blooms on your painting, which isn't really bad, but what we want to avoid is the petals starting to merge into one. Our aim during this stage is to really separate them from each other. As I go closer to the center, I'm introducing darker shades of pink. That's my pink mixed with brown. You can also try mixing it with blue or violet if you want a cooler shade. At this point, you can see that I'm working on petals which are close to one another. That's because I'm very careful in leaving out a tiny space or a gap between each petal. If you can do the same, then no need for you to wait for the other ones to dry first. But if you're not that confident in painting the petals as close as this, then let the others dry first, or speed up the process by using a blow dryer or hair dryer. Aside from the tiny gaps between the petals, the more important factor that we should be considering in separating them from one another is value, or the lightness and darkness of the color. If needed, you can turn the reference into a black and white photo so that you can effortlessly distinguish where it needs to go lighter or darker. Colors can easily distract us from seeing the values, so going black and white is a way to address this. If you want, you may also take a photo of your painting, turn it into a black and white, and compare it with a grayed out reference image. It's a fresh way to look at your artwork and check where you need to go lighter or, in this case, darker. Once dry, I'll take my flat synthetic brush and carefully soften some edges, especially the gaps between the petals. Try a round brush if you don't have a flat one. Rinse it with clean water, lightly scrub on your paper, and let the paper towel or rag absorb the reactivated pigments. Continue doing this until you're satisfied. Once done, I'll use the same brush to paint those tiny leaves surrounding the rose. I went darker this time, more green than pink. Time to add shadows. Again, if a black and white photo will help, then use that one. This time, I'm directly painting on a dry paper and softening the edges as soon as I can. Continue doing this until the separation of the petals is visible or obvious. Lastly, I'll retouch the background. I will introduce blues and violets, splatter some pink, the same color of the rose for harmony, and even let some of the leaves bleed with the background. If you're liking this video so far, don't forget to boop that like button so that other people who are looking for something to paint will also see this. I'm really looking forward to your version of this painting, so please don't forget to upload your artwork via the link below. Here's our lovely pink rose. Thanks and stay safe.